I want to welcome everybody to the Daily Cheat Sheet. Mend, great haircut. We know one of your closest friends is a hairstylist, a fireman. I think Mend has friends go on in every sector. Kudos. You look amazing.
Thank you.
I want to remind everybody right now, if you want to see what Mend looks like, go to our YouTube channel, follow us on Rumble, or you could go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, any of the downloading platforms, and give us that 5-star review. Write a good review, share us with your friends, share us with your enemies, share us with the world. Thank you.
That's right. Not only does men look amazing, but I'm wearing pajamas. So I think we're all doing great.
I got my turning point tee. Proud to be an American.
Okay, let's get to it. I just want to say, I'm not sure if this is true or not, but this is one funny story. I saw this on X by a fairly reliable source, which on X is, it could be 10% true. They were saying that Bibi, I don't know if you saw this story, but Macron offered him to fly over French airspace to get to America, and he refused.
Yeah, he avoided Spain and France, thinking that if the plane has a problem, they got to land. Can't trust those people.
That's exactly right. And thank you for backing up that story. But that is absolutely remarkable when you compare and contrast to go on to the garbage that was at the United Nations. And it's such a frightening thing, this shift in the world. We're watching Spain ban Israel from the soccer, right? Is it Spain that's banning Israel, that wants to ban Israel in 2026?
Spain is trying to ban them from the World Cup competition, from Eurovision, from breathing. You know, Spain also brilliantly said, if only we had a nuclear bomb, we might be able to step in and stop Israel's aggression. They also sent a warship to follow the party flotilla where they don't allow gay people. It's wonderful. Spain's really just tell me you're being paid by Qatar without telling me you're being paid by Qatar.
I want to ask you a question, Mend, about this, because you know what I've always said about the left. They cannot control themselves, right? That's what helped Trump get into power. They cannot control themselves as far as DEI. It was really our saving grace, was their own words in regards to the border, in regards to people getting trans surgery in prison and having, just the most incompetent staff known to man. Do you see the world right now thinking they're on the right side, not realizing they're on the wrong side, and like literally actually helping America and Israel at the same time by going so far to the left that their countries will look and go and course correct?
Yes, I think they do think they're on the right side. They think that they're doing what the populations want. And this could be compared to giving in to an impetulant child. So I have a dear friend, a mentor. This guy's like a dad to me. He's always been fantastic. And he told me recently, he's like, I would go to dinner with you and your family any day, anywhere, but I will never take my grandkids right now. Will not take any of my grandkids to a dinner. They just don't know how to behave because their parents, his kids, gave in. They were too giving and too accommodating to these kids, and there was no discipline. And now he has a whole bunch of kids that are just impossible to deal with, especially in public. Same thing here. These countries are giving in to the spoiled brats that they allowed in, these insane jihadi lovers that are out there cheering for Hamas. We just saw it in the United Nations where the Syrians were celebrating Jolani's visit, Mohammed al-Shara, the president of Syria, by making the chopping of the mustache gestures towards the Druze who showed up at the UN, the United Nations, Druze, right? The Druze, the minority in Syria that are being slaughtered. It's the exact same thing. You have these lunatics that are on the side of the murderers, and now we have Western governments giving into them.
So my question gets
wait. So this is actually so Ben, you're saying the opposite of the answer to his question.
No.
He's asking. Well, hang on. Let me. Judah's question was: do the leftists they think they're doing the right thing when they go into crazy town and start chopping up the children and start shooting the healthcare CEOs and all of that? They believe we're on the righteous side of things, like they do, like we talked about yesterday with Iran. How we're getting rid of the Shah, then they all got their heads chopped off, and the Ayatollahs took over. So here he's asking, do these world leaders think that they are on the right side of things? I would argue.
No, that's not fully. Golan, that wasn't fully.
No, you weren't asking the European leaders. You were asking the people.
No,
right?
I'm asking the European leaders. I'm saying just like the Democrat leaders here, the leftist leaders here all thought they were on the right side and they believed the amplification on X or whatever it was.
So let me start with part one, which is the answer is I don't think these European leaders think they're doing the right thing. I don't think the European leaders think they're on the right side, and I don't think the European leaders care if they're on the right side. I think the European leaders are a captured crew. I think they're going against their own people. We know already that let's just use the UK as an example, that it was 90% overwhelmingly of the population in the UK did not want him to recognize Palestine, right? And he's going against his own people by embracing these policies the public doesn't want. Usually, either to appease foreign paymasters, as we've talked about in the past, Qatar, greasing everybody's palm, or to get the Sharia law vote, the Muslim vote within their population, which they think is going to happen, not realizing that just like has happened over and over and over again when people try to appease the barbarians, they turn around. Once you get them into power, they turn around and then you become the target as well. So I don't even think they care if they're doing the right thing.
But
I
That's
agree
my
with you. And
answer.
what I am saying is that there is a vocal minority that are jihadi lovers that swing left, that they're trying to pander to, and I think they're doing the right thing.
You're both missing my question. You're both missing my question. What I'm saying to you is this a blessing in disguise? Because remember, this was a blessing in disguise in America that for 4 years we all witnessed. No borders, DEI, the breakdown of America into chaos.
I get your question.
And thank God we got President Trump in to remedy the situation. Do these countries have to come close to extinction?
I'm going to let Mend answer because Mend is shaking his head just like I'm going to shake my head. Go, Mend.
Yeah. And what I'm going to say is that Robbie Starbuck's old thing, which is the more you're exposed to something, the more normalized it has become. In the first time the Palestinian Authority, Yasser Arafat or Mohammed Abbas came out and said apartheid, everybody laughed at him. It's nuts. What are you talking about? Arabs inside of Israel have equal rights. They get elected judges and doctors or whatever they want. So they laughed it off, yet those people use that language. The Russians told them to use that type of language over and over and over again. And now you're hearing it at the United Nations being uttered by presidents of other countries. It's become normalized. It's become standardized. So anytime you say that, I mean, we had open borders. Sure, we saw how crazy the Democrats were, right? We saw how far they were going by mutilating children, by allowing violent criminals into the country. Fentanyl, 100,000 deaths a year. I think 500,000 total from fentanyl thus far. I mean, off the charts. You think it was a blessing in disguise? I think we would have seen, we knew how crazy they were, but it was terrible.
I understand. No, hang on.
I get it. It was a wake-up call. They're not getting the wake-up call.
He's heading in the right direction but here's the thing. He's right, is that the answer to your question, Judah, is no. This is not a blessing in disguise because right now, as someone who does not believe we should carve up children and does not believe that men should participate in women's sports, I am a bigot. That's it. It's no longer, it used to be, what are you, nuts? You're going to let the dude participate? Like, it doesn't even make sense. And there would be that little small faction of the crazy shouters, and you look at them and be like, those guys, right? And eventually it was a little bigger. And then they recognized this is where we can go off the rails and everyone's going to follow. And now it is just standard that I am a bigot for thinking what should be normal.
Yet people stopped following is my point.
People stopped following some, but now you're talking about Europe. And in Europe, they're not playing that same game. In Europe, they're playing the Muslim game. And when you play the Muslim game, that's what they were waiting for. They wanted to break down society with all these other things. We can list all of them. It's all the stuff we always talk about. They broke down society so that everyone got really polarized. You either wanted to chop off kids' genitals and their breasts and everything else, or you didn't. And then once you were in your silo, they were like, by the way, this silo over here, you have to be pro-Muslim and pro-jihadi and pro-terrorist. And they're like, okay, now we are. But now that you are, all the Muslims are going to vote. And they've convinced everybody, like Sadiq Khan said about Trump when he said, you're letting the Sharia law in. Well, it turns out Donald Trump is Islamophobic. He gave a little speech to mayor. And so now that's it. It's like saying racist. Uh-oh, now we're in bad territory. So you're going to watch as Europe decides to put their head gently into the guillotine. They're actually already have in a lot of cases, but it's going to get worse.
So, Mike,
I
so
don't
you're
think this is
answering
good.
my question. So basically, just to end it, to wrap this up, you're both saying you don't see any European country, for the most part, electing in a right-wing government in the near future.
I think even if they do elect a right-wing government, to undo what's been done. I mean, would you call Boris Johnson, was he right-wing?
Boris Johnson, that's a difficult one. And I got to be honest, Boris Johnson's a very hard case because Golan would know the best on this, because the media savagery on him, even from the right, it's so impossible to gauge Boris
Because
Johnson.
he lost to the left, right?
Yeah, no, yeah. But I'm saying the way he was vilified, Golan, in the press, that's what I'm asking.
Just to answer that question, you could say Boris Johnson is technically, and it's an important word to add in there, on the right. He led the Conservative Party. So sure, Conservative Party is technically right.
Which tends to be a lot of the case.
But that's the thing. He's not a straightforward right-winger. And if you think of the American concept of conservatism, he's not that. Economically, he was like a populist centrist, right, on socialist, who's socially liberal. Like completely. So, and you know, you can go one item at a time down the line. He's not what you would call, if he was running in the United States, he would be center at best and possibly a little left.
Right. But for the UK, he was considered the leader of the Conservative Party. He allowed in more immigrants than anyone else previous to him.
Well, so did Bush.
So,
I mean, you know, again,
Bush also did. So that's what I'm saying, is that like, even if you get
I'm talking
conservative
about a
leader,
Farage. I'm talking about a Nigel Farage style candidate. I'm not talking about Mitt Romney-esque. I'm not talking about, our old school rhinos. I'm simply referring to a Gert Wilders type of figure.
I hear what you're saying, but I'm saying
a melee type of figure. There are figures in that region. We had Bolsonaro, right? Those types of people. Yes, you're right. I get it. The damage has been so done in those places to degrees that we can't even imagine here.
That's what I'm saying.
Like our worst case scenario right now is Dearborn, Michigan. Right, that's our worst case scenario. I'm saying, as far as a massive Muslim.
Can we go smaller? Let's just look at universities, okay? Because here's the thing I always hear: the right, and we talked about the pendulum swing. Usually we talk about it in terms of we should go too far, so they don't go too far, and then your argument is they've already gone too far. All of that, but I'm talking about politically, right? I've always joked about the pendulum swing being like, what's the furthest thing from Obama? Donald Trump, right? So we swing wildly in the other direction, and the problem is the right keeps thinking that culture is part of the pendulum swing, and culture doesn't always swing back. And if you're looking at things like universities or Hollywood or the newsrooms or Silicon Valley, the left captured those places. Yeah. They never came back. It didn't matter who got into office.
It's a great
point. Culture is downstream, as we know, of everything else.
I want to say everything you guys have said, I agree with. I'm listening to. And the reason I brought it up was because it's important that we talk about this stuff. It's extremely important because just as E or L Turbo was listening to the show yesterday and was listening and took men's part and took your part or my part or whatever part it was, digesting this stuff is not easy. Imagine, so we're digesting this, we're ingesting this, and we don't, so I just think important topics like this that are in the news right now, because everybody hates the UN. I could post I hate the UN on Truth and I'll have 20,000 people liking it. But really, to get in the weeds of what's actually going on in the UN with 180 countries is absolutely frightening when you want to go there. So that's why I really wanted to bring it up. And Mend, I want to ask you this because the other day, this was a huge story. So Pete Hegseth now is calling 800 top generals to attend the mystery meeting, supposedly in Washington next week. Part of me wants him to say you're all fired. I doubt that's going to happen. But the other day in New York City, as we were discussing, we've often said we don't spend enough money on our grid system. We don't spend enough money on tech in our own country. And the case the other day with that bot thing, where you sort of might have played it off a little bit, but there actually might be something going on in this country. And I'm not trying to play, but when you see something like that happen, and in other places like Milwaukee and the Midwest, these bot farms being set up, this is real serious business.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that is scary about what they uncovered in New York was the scale of it. because I've seen it on much smaller scales, and we've seen it on large scale like that in China, where they're using it to, if I come out with an app and I want the app to be top rated, I could pay a Chinese company and they'll have 800,000 cell phones to give it top ratings. You're all using VPNs, right? So there is stuff. What these guys found were multi-million-dollar equipment setups, which seems like it could be done by a state actor instead of a non-state actor. I mean, right now they're saying it's a non-state actor, but this looks more professional than anything I've seen in a while. So
That's what I
there could be
wanted to
things
hear from
brewing.
you. I just wanted to get your assessment of the situation a few days later. That's why I didn't really want to get into the weeds, go on it the other day, because I sort of wanted to let it play out a little bit. But this is an interesting thing. I'm having 800 generals, or the top 800 generals, coming into Washington. Obviously, we're all curious, and we're not going to find out till it happens. But it is a massive news story.
I'm curious. I really want to hear both of your opinions on how you feel about this, because I know you said, Jude, I don't know if you're kidding or not. I kind of wish you would just fire everybody. Look, I wanted change, right? I think there's a swamp that needs to be cleaned out, but this doesn't feel like the right way to do it for me. This feels like we have a problem with arrogance. We have a problem with secrecy. We have a problem with back dealing. And this feels like we're double dealing on secrecy and arrogance and back. It just feels like the wrong way to go about it. It reminds me of MBS calling all the Saudi princes and tycoons and mullahs and everybody, the power play at the Four Seasons in Saudi. What's about to happen here? And it kind of feels a little un-American, and I'm very curious. I'm sure Men disagrees with me. I really would love to hear Men's opinion on this, because I'm still digesting it and trying to figure out what the hell's going on.
I love that Mendes. I just have to say, before he answers, I got paid the nicest compliment today by White Cheddar on Truth Social when he said, "I am a voice crying in the wilderness," and he meant that in the most complimentary way. And I really I don't think I'm alone in the wilderness. I think there are a lot of people with us. We're just not always the loudest screaming. I do think there are a lot of people that think and want to say what we say, but they're scared to death. It's why I keep on praising Patricia Heaton for coming out and being one of the few actresses not signing a letter, but speaking the truth. And no offense to the letter, go on, but answer his question now, Matt.
So he's calling all these top generals, and we don't know why, but we do know that the previous Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, had these grandiose meetings just like this. Maybe he didn't call them all in person, but they had, got up in front of the television cameras and they said, "We're going to root out all the white supremacists because white supremacy is the biggest threat to our democracy," which turned out to be a complete pile of horseshit. They did their investigations and found nothing. I think they found 2 guys that had swastika tattoos, and that was it in the entire military. Nothing. There was a Muslim guy that was caught today that was in the enlisted ranks of our military that was sending 3D model weapons to ISIS. He was trying to help them out. That just came out today. Another 3 Muslims shot up a baseball game today. I mean, if you're going to talk about the biggest threat to American military, it would either be the woke left or Muslim infiltrators. We've had open borders. There's between 1,000 and 2,000 highly skilled, highly trained mercenaries in this country. That's what the CIA experts are saying. So for this guy to call the top generals and say, "Listen, we need a change," I think he's going to talk to them about just cleaning ranks of woke anti-American lunatics that are in the military. That's my hunch. That's what I can't think of anything else.
Well, we don't know yet.
Top of mind.
No, I mean that's speculation, of course, but
And of course,
are we not fans of like routine and agendas and transparency and chain of command?
He shouldn't be. He can't disclose that stuff to us. This might be a meeting about what's going on with Russia and Ukraine, and we might take some actions there, or Venezuela, or
he might
whatever
be throwing them a party for all we know. He might be going, this might be like a gala for 800. But I'm just going to say this, and
I hope it's a top to down.
It's
top
just,
to bottom.
by the way,
shake-up.
I just want to point out though that what Men just said, no offense, Men, not exactly accurate. No SecDef in history has ever called everybody together, surprise, with no information, no explanation, all at once, especially physically. And this is something that I don't know.
Can I tell you something? Go on. Can I tell you something 100% to be true?
Please.
That if there was an agenda sent out to 800 generals, I could guarantee you we would have known the
We would
agenda.
have.
But before the story broke, there would have been 50 generals reporting we're all ordered to come to Washington next week. So I can almost guarantee you there is no memo out there to any of these generals. And I always have to cite Ben on something when, especially with his father, Ben Stein, that, he didn't always have the highest regard. And you know the same thing in regards to Israel with generals. And that's why there's the old adage, the generals that got us into the war are usually, or there at the beginning, are never there usually to end the war. Go on to the bigger point. I was discussing this with Ben last night, and this goes to what Mend was talking about, which was what we're witnessing. And a lot of people don't know this. And I wish I had known more about this. And obviously, this is why we have Ben Stein in our worlds and our lives. And he was talking about the Nazis and Islam, right? And he was talking about Nazism and the muftis and using Muslim soldiers. And that's what Hitler did. He used Muslim soldiers.
Absolutely. I've got great photos of literal Muslims wearing their Muslim garb with the SS symbol on their collar and everything else. Absolutely true.
And so I want to move that to what Mend was just talking about with what's coming in, right? So we watch the Nazis to them. Now we're almost watching the muftis or the Muslims to the leftists in our country. It's like the circle of insane life, Simba, of evils. And that's where we're witnessing go on. And I keep on bringing this up, and it's hard to write this stuff and to sort of get your point across on this. But what we're witnessing on the left is from these same playbooks.
I agree 100%. And I think we have to look at it like maybe a little bit like a cult. If you have a bunch of people who are searching for meaning, and I'm not saying that all of them are this, I'm going to stereotype for a moment and generalize, but there's a lot of people on these college campuses, let's use that as the inception point of a lot of this stuff, that they're wealthy, they have no purpose, they have no meaning, they're searching for something, just like all the people that cults target, right? And these people have been targeted from day one, as we've talked about, with SJP, the Students for Justice in Palestine, showing up on their doorstep. This is true and documented. The first day that people arrive at university, they go through the dorms, knock on everybody's door and say, do you want to help stop a genocide? And then they fill them full of misinformation from day one. And so you have those people who have essentially become Manchurian candidates, radicalized, laying in wait until the moment they are activated to begin marching or causing violence or what have you, right? So those people they're the useful idiots. And that's why I keep coming back to the Iranian comparison, because when the mullahs came in, the first place they went was to the leftist students on the university campuses who were looking for a cause that they could gather behind. And they told them, this is your cause, and kept pumping them full of misinformation. Same language as we talked about yesterday, fascism, 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 until all of them didn't just march. They rose up with weaponry. They became guerrilla groups. They burned things down. They killed people. And they helped the mullahs get into office, just like what's happening right now, where these leftists are helping the Islamists get into office, and get into office like Zoran Mamdani in New York, for instance, or any of these other places around town. It's already happened in London, right? We already have a Muslim mayor of London. And as Trump pointed out today, they're just looking until Sharia law can finally be implemented. And you're basically watching them. You have a very small elite on top who know what's going on. Then you have a group of useful idiots who have been activated, and there's a lot of them. They're essentially cannon fodder, because either they're going to get arrested or die in the process. And once it's done, just like the capos, the Jews who betrayed their own type in the Holocaust, they all ended up in the gas chambers, they all ended up in the ovens, and they all ended up in the mass graves. And that's the same thing that's going to happen to all these leftists who think they're doing the right thing while they're helping murderers and rapists take over the world.
Great. You're right. I agree with all of that.
Okay. And you know what? And this is why I just want to say this. I am blessed to do the world according to Ben Stein. I've invited Golan on. I've invited Mend on, although I'm a little more nervous about that one. But I have invited both of you on because
I've been on that show.
You have been on, yeah, and you were fantastic when you were on it, and you were fantastic. And Golan, but that's why it's so important that we have people like that, because when he said that to me, when he brought that up to me about the muftis with the Nazis and just the correlations that are going on today. Anyways, let's move on a little bit. I mean, this is like, I don't even know. You sent the picture and you said, "Is this real?" Right. And so he sent, in our work group, in our work that we don't get paid for group, that you said the Alex Jones and his Hitler mustache. And is
Not
this
just his
true?
Hitler mustache.
Yeah.
He's straight up. He's just cosplaying Hitler. It's
Yeah.
all the way.
I don't really listen. I don't care to give Alex Jones oxygen, but again, he still has a lot of legitimate people, supposed legitimate people on his show. And his whole point, I get the point. People are going to say, "Oh, he was just dressing up as a Nazi, making it like that's the only way into the Democrat Party." That's the legitimacy of the Democrat Party. But I don't think going Hitler, I don't even know what to call it. Going blackface for Hitler would, yeah. So
He
go
tried
on.
to pull this BS where he was like, "Oh no, it's just a social experiment. Just a social experiment I'm doing." Right? But we know that if you really look at what he's doing, first of all, I know, men, you don't like the phrase dog whistle, or as El Turbo called it in his post on Truth Social, bird whistle. I think I might start using bird whistle. By the way, that's pretty good.
Yeah, why
This
is it called a
is
dog whistle? They don't whistle.
because
Because
the
only
dog.
dogs could hear it.
See, Judah, you
High
have now
frequency.
proven my entire Tucker Carlson point from yesterday. They only whistle at a frequency dogs can hear.
Thank you. Well,
There you
there's
go.
a lot of expressions like why do they call them blue dog Democrats? Or, that I actually know the answer to.
There you go.
Or why the other night I posed the brilliant question of why does it come, whoever came up with the term spending like a drunken sailor. Anyway,
That's right.
I could think of a lot of
What I'm
wealthy.
saying is this social experiment nonsense is a lazy cop out. This is like he's pulling, these shock jock kind of excuses when he really is trying to provoke either the haters, he's trying to provoke the listeners, he's trying to provoke those who are going to now come and worship at his feet, like they worship at Tucker Carlson, the other Nazi's feet, the real Nazi, not cosplaying, and Candace Owens, the female black Nazi somehow, and all the others. So I think this is, it's like a drunk driver saying, "I'm testing out the brakes. You were reckless. He can own it." And it's time for, I mean, you said it perfectly. So let's not give the guy any more oxygen.
Yeah, Mend, I want to move on though because I've been promising you for days. Unless you wanted to comment on it, Mend.
I love Alex Jones. He's a crazy lunatic.
Can I tell you something, Golan? He's the person I learned to read the comment section from. That's how I could gauge the craziness of especially the right in our country. Or I hate even using that term because I don't consider them, I hate these terms because this is where I learned to gauge people because I wanted to see the comment section, and all roads in Alex Jones' comment section always leads to the Rothschilds and the Elders of Zion. You could almost guarantee.
Do our listeners know what those two things mean?
I
The
would hope so. Yeah.
Jews. Okay.
Yeah. But let me get to Mend because Mend and I disagree, and so do you on quite a few things. And we've been going back and forth the other day, many days. It's not really back and forth. Mend's been coming at, and we've been going back at Mend. And the reason I feel it's important to bring it up is because there's a Democrat Congresswoman that's bringing up that she wants to impeach Bobby Kennedy Jr. Right now, I like Bobby Kennedy Jr. a lot, and liking somebody a lot doesn't always mean you're going to agree with every single thing that person says. So I am a big Bobby Kennedy Jr. fan. I've shared it on the show, and I've posted about it. Mend and I had a bit of a disagreement, as did you, the other day about this whole Tylenol thing. And, my whole thing was, listen, they set out to say it was vaccines that were causing autism. And I didn't like how that whole thing was put together. Men pointed out some very good things about the press conference that he held, and I give him props for that. So, men, this is where I draw the line. This is where I draw the line when Democrats start saying impeachment because you disagree with somebody on something they're raising. That's, so I'll let you go for it, man.
Okay, so we're talking about Tylenol and autism. Now, if you listened to the announcement, what Trump says and what he means is not always the exact same thing. Can we all agree on that? Sometimes
100%.
he uses words that are a little crass, a little crude, a little off mark, but if you get the gist of what he's saying, you understand where he's going with this. So Trump made some statements and then the media went crazy with it. But if you listen to Dr. Jay Bhattacharya or Marty McCary or Oz, any of them that were talking, basically some of the stuff that they were saying was that autism has been skyrocketing. We don't know why. What they've been doing up until now has not been working or making a dent in alleviating or mitigating this epidemic.
It's a good word with Tylenol.
And then they brought up the fact that, and Trump said it, he goes, this is not going to be eloquent. That's not nice the way I say it. They don't want me to say it, but I'm going to say it anyway. Pregnant mothers should not be taking Tylenol. And it's safe to err on the side of caution. He may not have used those exact words, but that's what he was saying, is that there are links that we've seen between Tylenol and autism, and it can't hurt. It can't hurt not to do it. And this, he said this again with the measles, mumps, and rubella. Let's break it up. Don't give them it to one shot. It can hurt to break it up. And he said the same thing about hepatitis B. It's sexually transmitted or it's transmitted by needles. Babies are not doing that. What you could do is you could find out when the mom comes in to deliver her baby, if she is or she has hepatitis B, then maybe you want to give that to her newborn baby, but not all babies. There's no reason to be doing that. So everything that they said made sense. Now, of course, the media is attacking Trump, and they don't even say Trump, but they say, they don't even say Dr. J. Bhattacharya or Marty McCary and cite any of the studies that they've cited, none of that. What they do is they say Trump is an idiot and he doesn't know what he's doing. And now you're having these libs on TikTok posting videos of them taking.
Not literally the libs of TikTok, just so you separate that.
Right. Not Chaya
not the account, libs of
not
TikTok.
the account.
Liberal people
on TikTok are taking so much Tylenol right now that they're winding up in the ER, some of them in kidney failure because they're trying to prove Trump wrong. What's important to note is in 2013, Reuters had an article that said too much Tylenol in pregnant could affect the baby's development. So in pregnancy, too much Tylenol in pregnancy can affect the baby's development. That was November 22nd, 2013 in Reuters. 2025, Trump links autism to Tylenol and vaccines, claims not backed by science. So did they change their mind? What happened there? Johns Hopkins University.
We went through the Johns Hopkins.
Taking Tylenol during pregnancy associated with elevated risks of autism and ADHD. That was November 5th, 2019. Hub staff report. CNN. Of course, today, but acetaminophen during pregnancy may increase the risk of hyperactivity in kids. That was on Monday, August 15, 2016.
Okay.
Study links acetaminophen to pregnancy. That was on October 30th, 2017.
All right, can we hold for a minute? You're going to go through a lot of stuff. So let me just stop you for a moment.
And no, I give it.
No, it's fine. He's going to read a lot of stuff. That's fine. And there's a story, and every story is going to be they said something here, and then they said something there, and they're different from one another. Now let's keep going. I'm just going to point out, and I'm not even talking about each of these individual stories. So I'm not even going to get into the weeds of that. I'm just going to say there is the key difference between most of the first, then last, right? Where we started, where we ended up, like the meme, is that most of the first ones were reports on early tentative findings that say this might be a concern. It's something to watch out for. And the later ones were addressing a public figure, in this case, Trump or Bhattacharya or whoever it was, or Oz or any of these other people, or RFK himself, making sweeping claims, right?
No.
Saying this is supported by
Stop
evidence.
right there. No. Stop right there. The entire news conference that they called wasn't to present a conclusion. It was to present the start of something.
That's not what I said. I didn't say that's what they said. I said that's what the articles are saying. So the difference between the first article of this is something to watch out for, there may be a concern, let's start watching it, and the later article saying we don't like that Trump said whatever. Now, I listened. You had me listen, right? I was there and I did exactly what you sent me the link. I watched it and I heard him say, as you and I talked about, vaccines can be spaced out. It can only help, he said, right? That was his quote. It can only help. He said there's no downside to breaking it up. You and I agree.
Correct.
And same thing. That's what we did with my kids. No problem. He said pregnant women should tough it out and should avoid Tylenol altogether unless it's like a serious fever, right? But he kind of hinted that because of the autism thing. Okay, look, he didn't say definitively, but all right, don't love, but all right, fine. He started saying there are certain groups that don't take pills, don't get vaccines, and they have no autism. That's not true at all. That is just a false piece of information. It's just wrong. There's no causal relationship.
Specifically with the Amish,
which is 100% wrong. It doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter. Even if he's wrong, he's allowed to be wrong. Okay. And he didn't say that means this. He was implying a causal link. Everything he was doing was implying. He never said Tylenol causes autism. He never said that. So The articles, though, that we're talking about they're actually reporting different things. They're not saying we believe Tylenol's an issue and later we believe Tylenol's not an issue. They were saying we believe Tylenol might be something that we should watch for, first ones. Like if you think about Reuters had that one. I'm sure it's on your list. 13 was this was something to watch for. And then it's the one you sent me the screenshot of. 25, it was we don't like that Trump is making these causal links. So he didn't make the sweeping claims they're claiming, but the articles also didn't reverse themselves. They're talking about two different issues that happen to have the same underlying subject matter. Does that make sense?
The two different issues? What are the two different issues?
The first one is Tylenol may be something to watch for. It's something we have a concern about. And the other one is we don't like that Trump is making sweeping claims.
Okay,
They didn't say then, and as a result, we now think Tylenol's totally safe. That's not what they said. They were coming at the actual subject matter in two different ways.
That's a trick. That's a media trick. So what they're doing there is they're not saying, because here's another way they could have framed this. They could have said, it's really great that the president of the United States is shining a light on this possible cause of autism.
But we know that's never going to happen.
And out of abundance of caution, he is urging pregnant moms to stick to aspirin instead of Tylenol as they investigate and try to figure this out.
Can I ask you a question?
That entire press conference was just to them.
I'm not disagreeing with you how it was misconstrued. And this is why when
and
you're
I agreed, by the way, I agreed that he didn't make those sweeping claims.
Yeah, we're not in disagreement on that. And here's the thing. When you're when you're Trump or anybody in that circle, when you know how the media is going to report something, it is that I hate to say this, there's always going to be that double standard, especially with Trump. You have to be so specific in your language. You cannot read off script because you know how vicious this media.
I love it that you're saying this. I love it that you're saying this because I'm the one who always says this.
No,
why do we need to give them extra ammunition?
No.
They will always.
Can you just listen for 1 second?
Yeah.
I'm talking about specifically with this. When he made the disinfectant comment, which we all know what he was saying. The second he said that during COVID, I knew there would be lunatics out there from the reporters or people taking disinfectant thinking that, and people did take disinfectant thinking it was.
I've said it a lot of times, the same thing.
I'm referring strictly to medical because when he, with other statements.
I apply it across the board. I think when Smotrich talks about exterminating Gaza, I'm like, terrible thing. You're giving them ammunition. When Trump makes these statements or he fights with Rosie O'Donnell at 3 a.m., it doesn't help. You're just giving the insane media more ammunition. And here, too, he came out and he wasn't eloquent with the way he spoke about this thing, but Dr. Jay Bhattacharya was and Marty McCary was. They were really clear about what this is. What they said was that everything we've been trying up until now has had zero impact on the amount of autistic kids in our country. Here's the difference.
Again, I just want to make a really clear distinction because I want to move on a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's just this. Here's the clear distinction that I'm trying to make with you is when it comes to medical stuff, you have to be extremely careful. Okay? Anybody. It doesn't matter who it is. Look at the 4-year mess.
What was it?
Look at the 4-year mess what we had because we were lied to. We were coerced. With everything from Fauci, every single thing that he pretty much said was a lie. Every other day.
What exactly do you take issue with that Trump said?
Can I answer this real quick, Judah?
Yes.
It's not even necessarily that I take issue with what he said. I take issue sometimes with how he says stuff because when he goes off book, he decides to do the salesman, Vegas showman thing. And then he says something that's a little more than he should say, right? So when he didn't say causation is proven, right? But he did make some comments that were, at least if you're talking scientifically, it goes beyond this may be a risk into I think this does cause autism. It's still, he didn't make the definitive statement, but he got real close to that border, right? The idea of, because I dealt with this when my wife was giving birth. That's why it's something that's like stuck in my head. We wanted to have a water birth. And I was a guy who always listened to doctors until my wife pointed out why I shouldn't. And then suddenly I started realizing, oh my God, I think I've been listening to the wrong people for a long time. And she said, I'm going to have a water birth no matter what. And I looked it up and I said, well, according to medical journals, they say don't have a water birth. They say it is a bad idea, and there's all these reasons for it. It has to do with bacteria in the water. It has to do with the child drowning. And I was like, I think we're not doing this. And she's like, good luck stopping me. And she opened my eyes to some stuff. So I dig deep. You know how I am. I start doing research. I don't stop. And I found out, oh, why do they not? Not because they've actually found that there are reasons not to do it, but because they haven't been able to replicate the same water birth, which is impossible to do, over and over and over again, enough to have it be something that's called a control. And so they basically just say, hey, we can't figure it out and we don't have anything definitive. So you know what? Just don't do it, which is not a real reason not to do it. So I started stopping listening to doctors and doing my own research and all the rest. And that's how we came to like separating out the vaccines with our kids and things like that. Wait a second. I'm almost done. Don't worry. Don't worry. I'm almost done. So when I hear someone departing from scientific caution, instead of may increase risk, or like further research is needed, they start to say like, don't do this. I automatically am like, it makes my shoulders like get weird. I get cringy. And he was starting to do what the medical journals would do about those things. He was getting real close to that line of saying something definitive, even though the definitive doesn't exist yet. That's my issue with
this press conference that they called on autism was to announce the steps that they're doing to look into the root causes of autism.
Okay, so this is what I want to comment on.
It wasn't, okay, and it wasn't, hey, we found and we're announcing what we found. It was, we are allocating $50 million to looking into autism. We're going to be looking into this Tylenol thing. And they compared it to looking into lung cancer, but not examining cigarettes' effect on it. They're like, how could every other study ignore this? Let's look into it. And there have been stuff that have looked into it in the past, a lot. There's a mountain of evidence out there.
This is my issue. And again, I don't care when Trump says certain things. I don't. I never have. And I'm not angry at him. I have no issues with this. I really don't. This is not an issue of mine. The bigger issue of mine, Mend, is this. Tylenol with acetaminophen has been around since the 70s, and women have been taking that. Take that out of the equation. I want them to be investigating psychiatrists in the last 20 years and their role in this. Because there's show me the psychiatrist that doesn't give you medication, which is a direct link to your big pharma issue. The way they're looking at this is, like how a lot of cops have the tunnel vision when they have their sights set on who they think committed the homicide, and they find out it's not the person, and they spend 3 months wasting an investigation. What I'm saying is, in the past 20 years, cell phones have been on the rise. Parents putting the screens in front of the kids in the backseat of cars have been on the rise. There's a lot of things that have been going on in the last 20 years that I would love for them to investigate. When you go see a psychiatrist, the first thing out of that first session should never be, what medication am I putting you on? I'm diagnosing you with ADHD, whatever it is. You're on the spectrum. I have met so many people that say to me, my kid's on the spectrum, or they have ADHD. My God, Mend, we were crazy kids from Brooklyn. And that's putting us mildly, okay? Mildly crazy kids from Brooklyn.
We were crazy kids from Brooklyn, but when I heard Golan say that he was institutionalized because he had ADHD and he was just bored, listening to the podcast, I almost fell off my chair laughing.
But
they put me in special ed, bro.
That's my exact point. And that was 72 years ago, okay? That they put him in the institution. He's blessed he didn't get a lobotomy. And that goes back to my lobotomy thing, right? When that became in vogue, or giving women thalidomide. Right.
I have one thing that I want to add that is to your point, from a respected doctor, a woman that I really look up to. I think everybody could check her out.
No, say what you want to say.
Oh, here goes. So her name is Dr. Rhonda Patrick. She has an account called Found My Fitness, and she's full of like really great health and wellness and workout and from a scientific standpoint. So in light of recent news, it's worth noting that that the association between acetaminophen, Tylenol, during pregnancy and childhood behavior is not new. There's a study from 2016 that found 30% increase in the risk of hyperactivity symptoms among children who were exposed to acetaminophen. I am going to jump ahead. Causation remains unestablished, but it's exciting that OBGYNs will now be getting guidance on this increased risk to inform women.
And what my point is...
Hold on, she keeps on. The FDA's advisory highlights an important association with autism and ADHD that's been evident in research for years. But autism isn't monocausal. This is what you keep on
This is
saying.
important.
There are
yes.
many factors which may contribute, including maternal inflammation and infections, vitamin D deficiency, low-grade omega-3 status, metabolic issues, immune dysregulation during pregnancy, to name a few.
I've been saying conservatives are not calling out Tucker Carlson. Why are doctors not calling out psychiatrists that give out and dispense to children medications? We've often referred to, like, with the trans stuff, but we've become to accept that every kid in America has ADHD and needs to be put on stuff. And Dr. Drew has spoken a lot about this. Not always the biggest trustworthy guy of Dr. Drew, but he's spoken about how this leads to addiction, how there's, and he is an addiction specialist. But Golan, my point is, I want investigations into all these avenues.
This is my point, by the way, too. So I'm with you. I come back to my wife because my wife is the one who really has opened my eyes to a lot of this stuff. She keeps saying to me, we have to move somewhere with clean air. It never really occurred to me to even look at such a thing, right? Air pollution. It's such a massive problem. And so we started looking where we're going to move in the world because we have the freedom. I work from my computer most of the time. I could be anywhere. And so it was like, okay, where are we going to go? And we started looking. And there are so few places left in the world that have clean air. And air pollutants are one of the top factors that have suggestive evidence to link to autism. It's I think it's number one post genetics and like the age of the parent. And then you look at the pesticides, you think about like what Monsanto is doing, and now 90% of the crops have this, I don't remember, glyphosate or something like that. I think it's called glyphosate, that this is the pesticide that's on everything. Oh, guess what? This is right around the same time, man, that Tylenol and all these things rose simultaneously. I want to see a study on that. I want to see a study. You and I talked about this, heavy metals, right? We talked about why do the vaccines suddenly have, aluminum or mercury or any of these crazy
They're
things.
getting rid of that. Bobby's getting rid of that.
I understand they are,
that.
but for years it wasn't gotten rid of. So that's a neurotoxic. Hang on. My point is there's a long list. There are certain things that right now have inclusive evidence. Some things like endocrine disruptors, something my wife is obsessed with, the BPAs and the flame retardants and all the other stuff. Like, this is running rampant. All the plastic we get from China probably is causing more autism than anything. And somehow that's not being blocked because everyone's saving money on their stuff. Like, there's so many things it could be. And almost all of them started around the same time, the last 50 to 70 years. So why not study all of it instead of coming out and say one thing?
That's what they're doing. That is what they're doing.
No. What I'm saying is I want them to say, we're spending $1 billion. I don't care how much money it is with all of these different things, from psychiatry, Tylenol, add anything you want to that list and see what's gone on in the last 20 years that supposedly has raised the level of autism. And again, I want to see the guide to how people judge autism. Okay?
I agree with you. They came out, they made some initial statements about Tylenol because there's a lot of not final evidence, but indicative evidence out there that Tylenol might be a contributing factor. And as an abundance of caution, they're saying, hey guys, heads up, try not to use Tylenol, go use aspirin. That's great. But when it comes to all the other stuff, you're talking about ADHD medicine. I mean, someone told me to put my kids on ADHD medicine when they were young, their doctor or whatever. I was like, you're out of your mind. I'm just going to have them play more. We got them out, and they're doing great. My kids are straight A students.
And that's my point.
All the fruit and vegetables that we eat get soaked in baking soda for 20 minutes. You do what you can. And as a parent, you do what you can. And that's the point of this.
Okay, let's just close it with this. Man, my whole point has been, when you have tunnel vision on one thing, you're never going to have clarity. It's a very hard thing to have clarity. And I'd have no problem, if, again, no horse in the race either, if the government would spend $1 billion looking into psychiatrists. Because I don't want, how many parents don't have the will and fortitude that you have as a parent? Almost every one of you, men.
It's hard. Everything that we're doing is hard.
For every one of you or Golan, there's 20 parents that will have that their kids will have taken those pills.
It's funny, by the way, how much Mend and I do that is similar, and we've never spoken about this stuff. It just happens to be. This is how we live our lives.
But that's my point. But for every 2 of you, there are 20 that don't. And I'm not knocking them. It's very hard to go against. And then again, you get the conflicting things of be your own advocate, right? And remember when everybody was told to be their own advocate? COVID hit. Then we were told, well, Don't be
Trust
your
the
own
science.
advocate.
Yeah.
Yeah, not your body, your choice anymore.
Right. The government is now your advocate. Okay, we're running out of time.
Side note, Golan, there's a house for rent down the block from me, and we have great air quality here.
Okay, let's talk after the show.
As time is running out, I just have to get to just to this basic thing in life is when somebody tells you who they are, you could when you first start talking to somebody, you could pretty much figure out who they are in the first 5 minutes. Whether you listen to them or not, that's your choice. So when people are writing on cartridges and shooting people, and they are writing ICE or they are writing trans or they are writing whatever it is, I'm trusting those people on that's why they did it, Golan. Okay? They didn't write Save the World. They didn't write Greenpeace. They didn't write Greta Thunberg. They wrote ICE. They wrote trans. I'm taking them on face value, these evil people, that this is what their belief system is. I'm
Why,
not
is someone
listening to
asking you not to?
Yeah. The families are everybody on the left.
Well, sure.
Everybody.
But I want you. What I mean is, I want you to talk about it so the listeners understand why you're saying this.
Well, because this is a constant leftist theme, right? I mean, this was Jessica Tarloff going after Greg Gutfeld yesterday. This was, in a sense, her argument. No, it has nothing to do with it, or what you hear on TV. No, they are repeating exactly what they're hearing on TV, and they're telling us exactly who they are. So when somebody, and listen, Timothy McVeigh, I know there are some people at whatever, but he gave a manifesto of why he did that. So I trusted him on it. But when these things happen, go on, we have to trust that's the reason, and they will not stop with this rhetoric. It is something that is, I've not witnessed something like this in my life, where you have 8 or 9 consecutive shootings, attempted shootings, even more violence being brought upon people in America, and people are saying, it's not really the reason, go on.
You're talking about them writing on the cartridges. How about what they shout out? The Free Palestine guy at the country club.
Exactly.
They're like,
what was
let's just
his
leave
motive?
that out of the article.
Right.
We don't know what his motive was.
No, I've always said there's the worse than fake news is not reporting the news. Okay. But don't report and say he said Free Palestine and say we don't know the motive. Okay.
Right. Or by the way, the police who report on it probably shouldn't be saying that either, because that's one of the things that came out. We don't think this is going to be a hate crime because we're not sure what his motive was, despite him shouting very specific things and then opening fire. So yeah, I think you're right, but I think we also know what the answer is. At this point, we are again, we talk about the silos all the time. We talk about the capture of the media.
Great show, by the way. Just for the record, with Rebecca Ferguson, that show on Apple TV is absolutely spectacular.
He's talking about Silo Men. Silo.
Yeah,
I haven't seen it. I don't know what it is.
My God, it is Apple.
It's really good, actually.
Yeah.
Apple has the best television shows, but the worst movies. Literally the worst movies I've ever seen in my life, but their television shows are awesome. Anyway, sorry, go.
Wow, what was I talking about? Oh, right, silos. So the idea of the compartmentalization of how they do this, where the media is on one side, and if something doesn't fit their narrative, they leave it out, or they pretend it doesn't exist, or they tell you what you're seeing isn't true. What's the line you always say, men? Don't trust your lying eyes, right? The media is constantly doing that to us. So it's not a surprise. And I think these things are going to keep happening over and over again. We've talked about it. Everyone is empowered now to cause the next level of violence, to escalate the thing. So that's going to happen. And each time they're going to.
The level of gaslighting we're seeing coming out of the left, especially around these shootings, targeted shootings against people they disagree with politically, is off the charts. So when it's someone on the right, they all get into motive. If there's some right-wing lunatic who does something, and it happens way less frequently than it does from the left, once in a while it happens, they get into the motive and they talk about all the neo-Nazis and the tiki torches and God knows what.
Not only that, it stays in the news cycle for much
Can I say what I used to joke around with the tiki torch stuff? Like if you went to South Carolina or North Carolina, whatever part that was, North Carolina was on, if you go there on any Saturday night, it probably looks exactly the same. People with tiki torches. They just happen to have an event there that day, but go on, man.
Talking about North Carolina, that Ukrainian girl that had her throat slit by a deranged multi-offense criminal who was let out of jail repeatedly 14 times. And there were 4 people on the light rail with her that did nothing to help her. if the races were reversed, if there were 4 white people sitting around and didn't help a little black girl who just had her throat slit by a white guy, the entire North Carolina would have been burnt by now. It would have been done, absolutely burnt. CNN would still be talking about mostly peaceful protests and how they have a right to do it. This girl it happened to, zilch, nothing. In fact, the people that came out, the elected officials from North Carolina, say it has nothing to do with their revolving door of criminal justice where they just don't lock people up.
Well,
So
also,
the
we've been conditioned too, thanks to other news stories that we all know about, to not step in. Because how many times have we seen people now step in?
Yeah, with
And
Daniel Penny, but I want to bring
Kyle
up
Rittenhouse, Daniel Penny. There's a
something
whole laundry list of
something
people
really
who,
important. You
who
guys are
stepped in to help and then were then vilified and had their lives destroyed as a result of it. So just like that cop, I told you guys the story of the cop in Brooklyn as we're watching a carjacking happen. And I was like, isn't that something you're supposed to stop? And he told me, what if one of them has a camera? I ain't about to destroy my life for that. Why don't you go ahead and stop it? Like, that's what everybody is now.
But you know what it reminds me of? It's the final Seinfeld episode, right? Because of that famous case, the famous case. And please, I think it was in Boston. I'm blanking on the woman's name, that she was screaming and it went unreported, right? And she ended up getting, if
You're
you
talking about the rape case.
the rape case, yes.
Yes.
Where she got raped, and nobody reported it, and they've made that a crime. If you could please Google quickly her name.
That was from the 70s, I think it was, in Brooklyn, right?
Yeah, in Brooklyn or Boston, wherever it was.
She was screaming for help for hours and nobody came.
And Golan, they made a law that if that happens, you're an accessory in a sense. That's the whole.
Yeah, that was the Kitty something.
Kitty Genovese.
Kitty Genovese. Yeah,
Kitty Genovese. Thank you so much.
And it was New York. It was New York. It wasn't Boston. Yeah.
New York. I didn't want to blame everything on New York. Okay.
I think it was Queens. It was Queens.
Yeah. I was saying
right.
But so this is where we are, right? If you protect somebody, go to jail. If you don't protect somebody, like the law says, you don't go to jail. Everybody is scared to death. We've totally castrated our men in uniform and our women in uniform, and something has to change. This cannot stop. This is not a one-off. And I'm going to say this again, what we're witnessing with the left is only the beginning, especially if we go on the premise of what we were talking about with the Germans and the muftis, and the muftis to the indoctrination of the left over here. The shootings are only the beginning. This is an indoctrination, especially weaponization, of 10 years. Imagine in another 10 years. Okay, all of us have lived in Israel. All of us were there pretty much during the Second Intifada. And for people that are not familiar with the Second Intifada, it was an uprising of bus bombings, of mass homicide bombings on the buses, mass terrorist attacks on the streets. It was an extremely dangerous time to be in Israel. More dangerous than rockets coming over, by the way. More people, so we do not want that
I have
here.
to interrupt one thing real quick because I just learned something. I looked up the Kitty Genovese case to make sure that I was right, and I just learned something fascinating. First of all, it's 1964. But second of all,
we were all wrong.
But talk
I said
about
70s. It's close.
But this is a great example of misinformation and how it affects the future, right? I just learned this. First of all, she was not raped. She was murdered. Early accounts wrongly, but we were talking about the wrongly suggested sexual assault. But there was a whole story about how 38 people witnessed it and did nothing, which apparently is not true. First of all, there's a very small number of neighbors. That's a myth of widespread neighbor indifference, led to the rise of Good Samaritan laws. A bunch of them called the police. One ran down to help her. And the perception that dozens stood by and did nothing shaped psychology, shaped law, and shaped the story forever. I didn't know that. I believed the fake story until this moment.
Which goes to, you know what? I'm so glad you brought that up because it's a perfect way to end, and it's a perfect way to say, Mend, I brought up your point, and Golan just proved you 100% wrong. In the corner for you.
I don't even, before we end, I got one thing that I tweeted out and I truthed out about.
This is one of the funniest things, but you're taking my recommendation on this one, right?
Of course. So our president came out and said it cannot hurt to err on the side of caution. Therefore, this is in response to a nurse saying that now the ICUs are being filled up with people that are taking too much Tylenol to prove Trump wrong, and they're suffering from liver failure, kidney failure. So I said our president came out and said it cannot hurt to err on the side of caution. Therefore, pregnant mothers should stop taking Tylenol, acetaminophen. And now all the liberals are popping Tylenol on TikTok like it's breath mints in a show of defiance to Trump. At POTUS needs to come out and state that fentanyl is bad for you, and watch all of the libs with DTS syndrome turn themselves into crack whore zombies in defiance of Trump. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
This just broke. So
By the way, I did not know this was coming, and that's just incredible. Well done, man.
It's hysterical, and I just want to because this just came out. Trump was speaking, I guess. He declared he won't allow Israel to annex the West Bank. It's not going to happen. And this is where there's reality Trump, and so I don't take this news story with any certainty or any. He was talking to Erdogan today, so this is one of those things.
Did you hear what he said to Erdogan?
Yeah.
That was one of the funniest things where he said, this guy knows about rigging elections.
Yeah.
Well, he was sitting right there.
Everything he
Erdogan
said
was sitting right there. He goes, something, rigged election. He knows about rigged elections because that guy's been rigging all of the last elections. So all of his political opponents are in jail.
Yeah. So this is one of those things where you say to go along, we'll say there's a certain strategy into everything Trump says and everything Trump does. I would not take this and let it bother me one split second or one iota. Would you agree with that, Golan?
There was one moment when I saw it when I was like, oh, man, this season of the world sucks. I can't wait for next season to start when it gets a little more normal. But yeah, the second I said, oh, right. This is the same guy who was like, haven't decided whether I'm going to attack Iran yet. I'll decide in a couple of bombs. So I'm totally okay with him making whatever statement he wants to make, because Trump has figured out something that many people, especially in the West, have not figured out. That in the Middle East, they understand that there's what you say, there's what you do, and there's what you say you're going to do. And those three things do not match up. And he is the first Western leader to say, I'm going to play your game, and I'm going to play it better than you. And so let him say whatever he wants. I want to see what he does.
I do not think he's going to allow them to annex the West Bank. I think the plan is,
we'll see.
Let them go in and finish the job in Gaza, which they're doing. Then they're going to figure out a multinational force to come in and rule Gaza until they figure out which local leaders they could actually empower, because Abbas is not the guy. And then he's going to work on the Abraham Accords and try to get actual peace to the Middle East. And annexing the West Bank has been stated by a lot of the Arab states, especially the moderate Arab states, is a red line for them. So maybe they could have a little capital in Nablus.
Like Saudi?
Yeah, Saudi, UAE.
Saudi, who just made a deal with Pakistan, and basically Israel has said, okay, we're done trying to even try with you anymore. Like, I don't know if we need to care as much as, and I'm with you, by the way, that was for a while. It was like, we got to be real careful, but we also know that what Saudi says out loud isn't what they do and isn't what they say they're going to do too. That we know that behind closed doors, Saudi has been doing deals with Israel for a very long time, while making sure that out loud, they're like, damn Israel. So we'll see.
I think the Saudi-Pakistan deal has more to deal with Iran than it does with Israel.
I'm just saying, let's wait and see. Okay,
right.
I'm not.
Mark my words. I don't think it's going to happen, but let's see.
They've already started, so I can't.
I wish it. No, well, the E1, I believe it is. That's going to happen. They're already building.
Well, that's my point.
And that's great.
That's my point.
Jerusalem does not belong to any Muslims. Period. End of story. They could come. They're welcome to worship. Israelis have respected the religions, all the religions there, unlike the Arabs, the Muslims, the Jordanians. When they had Jerusalem, they destroyed, I think, 460 houses of worship, Jewish houses of worship. They tried to erase the Jews from Jerusalem. But the Israelis didn't.
You mean just like the United Nations has done regularly when they pretend Israel and the Jews have
United
no
Nations is as useless as tits on a bull. It's just a
correct.
And on that note, I love your truth post. Keep posting on truth. Don't believe when it comes to foreign policy and President Trump. Listen. He also said they're close to a deal with Hamas. The only deal they're close with Hamas is Israel taking over that whole territory. I don't believe Israel will ever allow an international force to rule over there. I don't think they could trust those international forces because there are no trustworthy international forces right now. So let's just wait and see. Story just came out. I only brought it up because somebody messaged me, David from Truth, mentioned it, brought it up to me during the show, so I thought it was important to get to. Thank you both. Fun episode, serious episode. And I hope people could have the same discussions. I hope people could have the same disagreements and still talk to each other. I think that is one of the most important things in the world. And again, this is what Charlie Kirk always spoke about. And Mend shared a video of Megyn Kelly at a Turning Point event yesterday, and I thought she was absolutely exceptional. I thought she did a really good job at the event, which was very surprising to me. So I'm glad I did not have contempt prior to investigation. So I thank you for sharing that video. Still don't agree that Tucker Carlson should be speaking or allowed anywhere near a Turning Point event. There are Ku Klux Klan events with David Duke that he could be attending. And there are many events. There's a comedy festival in Saudi Arabia that he could cackle and perform for 375 grand easily. Go on.
Absolutely. I think, again, we don't want to deplatform Tucker. We just need him to go be platformed in places that make more sense. And Judah just gave some great ideas. I got a couple of other ones, and I'm happy to share them. Tucker, write me on Truth. I'll give you a couple of places you can go.
Perfect, though. He could be the opener. He could do crowd work at the Saudi Comedy Festival. Can you imagine being at a comedy festival in Saudi Arabia or Qatar? Like, do I laugh at this joke or not? Like, I'm sure they have like signs on the board. Laugh now. Yes. So on that note, I want to remind everybody you can find this at thedailycheatsheet.com. That's thedailycheatsheet.com. I want to thank everybody. And I also want to say, I want to wish everybody a good morning, afternoon, and night world, wherever you are. God bless you all.